So the aim of that presentation is few things. It's not a product presentation, it's not a sales presentation. It's really an educational one to better understand artificial intelligence in general, to better understand how is it applied today in different fields, especially in healthcare, and how will it impact our profession as dental professionals. So AI, artificial intelligence. Whenever we hear these two words, there's a lot of mental images that come to our heads. Not all of them are good. Most of these images are this. We imagine the Terminator, some killer robots, artificial general intelligence taking over the world and enslaving us. Very dramatic images. But the question is, why do we have this very negative connotation about artificial intelligence? There's a big reason behind this, and I will tell you the story very quickly. It all started in 1997. Does any one of you know who this guy is? Now, this is Garry Kasparov. He was the chess champion. And so Deep Blue, an American company, they invented, IBM, which is an American company, they invented a computer called Deep Blue. And that computer had one task, how to play chess. And so they phoned Garry Kasparov. They said, you know what, we have a new competitor for you. And it's a computer. And he laughed at it. He said, no way I'm gonna lose in front of a computer. It didn't happen before. It was the first time in history that a man would go against a computer. And as you can see in this picture, which is a real picture, which he was losing against a computer, he's so frustrated. This was a historic event because it's the first time in the human history that a human champion lost to a computer. And this is where, you know, all these Hollywood producers start having these old ideas about AI killing us and so on. But rest assured, this is still too soon. Unless you listen to Elon Musk, he has other negative ideas. So the truth is that AI is all around us today, and it's making our lives easier in all applications. Some examples like the self-driving cars today, like facial recognition is one of them. We all have facial recognition on our iPhones. The speech recognition is one area that is coming very strong. It's also coming very strong in the world of healthcare. So it went wrong here, but usually it works better than this. But also AI can make our life more beautiful. Like this real picture here that was made back to life thanks to AI. And the other picture on the left, on the right, is an art that won a prize in Colorado State Fair's annual art competition and was all created by AI. No human input. This all is created by AI. And this is the kind of thing that is capable of doing today. So the next question that we ask ourselves, what about healthcare? Let's go to the serious stuff here. So I want you to take a few seconds to look at this graph. I love it. It's the number of studies on AI that were published on PubMed since 2005 up until 2019. So we can see one thing here from a glance, the exponential growth, with almost not far from 10,000 publications on AI in the world of healthcare. And the biggest are, of course, radiology, pathology, and oncology. But there's also us, dentistry, with a very humble beginning, 190. Well, that was in 2019, but we're growing. We're on the right path. And some example of what AI is capable of doing today in the world of healthcare, for example, in radiology, where it's the strongest and the most accurate, 95% accuracy in detecting breast cancer, which is amazing and better than any radiologist in the world. One disruptive innovation that was with AI as well is to be able to remotely record your electrocardiogram, and you're able to detect atrial fibrillation. And today, you have this in your Apple Watch if you're wearing one, or Samsung Watch. And it can actually save lives. So, why did I want to show you the healthcare world? For two reasons. First of all, to let you know that it's happening and it's growing very, very rapidly. But there's also a good news here, is that us as dentists in the world of dentistry, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just say thank you to the world of medicine, and then we just copy what they're doing and learn from their failures and successes. So, very quickly, let's understand what is AI and how does it work. Very simply, AI is, first of all, two things you need to know. Artificial intelligence is not, it's an umbrella term. We always hear it. It's not one technology, but AI is a collection of technologies. And to be exact, more than 15 subsets of technology. The two that we hear most about are deep learning and machine learning, with deep learning being the most advanced one today. And this is the one that we're gonna focus on. Very simply, deep learning is, it's like animal brains. You know, in animal brains, we have synapses that connect, that communicate information together. Engineers are trying to do the same with algorithms. So they build these neural networks. These are called neural networks. You have, first of all, the first layer, which is an input layer where you give the information. Then you will have many hidden layers. And at the end, you have an output layer, which is the result. So in this one, this is a very simplistic representation. You have 12 parameters, but in some of the neural network of DM today, we have up to 500 million different hidden layers. Not hidden layers, but parameters. And so how do you get to here? In very simple terms, whenever you want to build an AI systems, there are 4 steps. First of all, you have to get the data. So if you want to teach the computer how to detect gingivitis, you have to gather a lot of picture of gingivitis. And when I say a large amount, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands, we're talking about millions and millions. And very important, you have to have clean data. So for example, with facial recognition, if you teach AI only using white faces, then if persons of other ethnicities, it wouldn't work that much. And there was an article published on AI not long ago saying AI is racist because AI in medicine was trained on one group of ethnicity and not the general population. So just so you know. Then the second step is you have to label it. So this is the less sexy part of AI, the boring part of AI. You have a bunch of guys sitting in a cave. They're called the clickers. And all day they're clicking on pictures and saying, yes, it's gingivitis, no, yes, yes. But it's very important to get to here. Then you start building these different layers. The system starts to learn alone till you get to a point where it's able to detect something that you're interested in, like for example, gingivitis. And of course, why am I talking about deep learning? For one reason, because the difference between deep learning and other subsets of technology is that deep learning, the more you give it information, the more it works, the better it becomes with time. Whether other technologies, they get to a point where they just become stable. Now I'll give you a real life example of how this was built, but a very simplistic and cute one. So here is a picture of Philippe's son, which is the CEO of Dynamagic. Before he started, he wanted to do experiment on his own kid. So he collected 4,000 pictures of his youngest one called Louis. And what he did is he came up with the algorithm. He chose 50 parameters on the face of his son, Louis. They built the neural network. You know, this was the first one. I remember I showed you one with 12 parameters, was simplistic one. This is what something complicated looks like, really like a brain with a lot of synapses and neurons. And then they put it to work. So the numbers that you see here, these are called prediction scores. So this is, for example, here, the AI is saying, this is Louis, and I'm 92.432% sure that this is him. Now we notice 2 things here. The first is that the more you go with time, the better it becomes at predicting this, the higher the predictability score. Why is that? Because by the time he got to 4 years old, there was more and more data. And the second thing is that the AI was able to recognize Louis even with a face mask on, and it was able to differentiate him from his brother who really looked like him in real life. So that's how accurate an AI can get. This boring slide is just to explain to you very quickly what we call quality control. So for example, in the case of gingivitis, when you give, if let's suppose we have 1 million images of gingivitis, what we do is that 85% of these images, we give them to the system, we feed them to the system so that he learns. 15% we keep it, and then at the end, we will compare what the system, to validate if the system is working well, we will use these pictures to give it to the system and compare it with a human validation. And you know, there's also regulation in the healthcare industry. They put a standard, they say, if it's below 90% accuracy, you cannot use it in general public. So everything is regulated. So how does our AI work in action? You've seen, Matus explained very well the impact, the clinical impact that DM has, how we use it from a practical standpoint, etc. Now we're gonna just maybe open the hood of the vehicle and to talk a little bit more about the details. So as you already know by now, when the treatment starts, a patient goes home with what we call a scan box. Scan box is just a special hardware that he connects to his smartphone where there's a dental monitoring app, and then he scans. Every time the patient scans, they're sending the pictures. Then the AI will work on these pictures on 3 different levels. The first one is what we call technical AI. I will show you the pictures, so it's treating the pictures. Then you have the clinical AI, detecting these different clinical situations. And the third one is multidimensional AI, which is able to take all this information, read your protocols, and then create reports according to your protocols, and then communicate this information to the patient as well. So from a practical point of view, this is what we call a raw image. Patient scans, we see his nose, we don't need to see that. So that
that was the old type of a scan box.
Yeah, right. So the old type scan box, it was, cheek retractors and one and magnetic, and now it's all together and there's a tube, so pictures are better. Then the AI, of course, will crop. It will do what we call segmentation, so it will detect the teeth, but not only detect these teeth by saying, oh, this is a tooth, it will be able to say this is an upper lateral 1, this is an upper left 3, etc. And then it will detect the gingiva. Final result, we have only the oral cavity, gingiva is detected, teeth are segmented. And so then we move on to the clinical AI. So the clinical AI does 3 things. We have 3 types of clinical AI. We don't have to go into details, but this is maybe good to know. Classification is a type of AI that say it's either A or B, like gingivitis. You have or you don't have. Segmentation is used to segment the teeth and not label them. And there's something that we call regression, the third one. It's when the AI is able to make measurements and to see how things are progressing. Like, for example, like the case that Matthew showed about the overbite. And then it's able to say it's overbite by this many millimeters and how it's progressing every time it takes a scan. And of course, today our AI has 130 plus neural network to detect different clinical situations. Here are 6 that I chose randomly, like hygiene problem. You saw a lot of this with Matthew. Noticeable unseats is something that you saw as well, recession. I'm not showing you anything new here. You all saw them with his clinical cases. Okay, this slide I chose it for one reason, is just to explain to you how the AI see things, because AI doesn't see things like a human do. AI only see 2 things, colors and pixels. And so, for example, here we gave it to the AI to detect 2 things. It's either a diastema or it's either a black triangle. And the way AI is able to detect this, you can see here, it's able to see where are the pixels changing in colors. And that way it's able to say it's localized in one region. So if, for example, it's a black triangle, or it's continuous, and that would be a diastema. It's just to show you 2 things, how accurate it is and that it's at a pixel level, no matter how small the detail is. Same. Okay. You saw this with Matthew as well, the objectives, so I'm not gonna go again. Another type of AI, very quickly, is what we call generative AI. Generative AI is able to take something, like for example, what we do at smile simulation. Maybe you've seen this with other softwares. Usually what other softwares do is they take the smile, pick from a library of dentition, and they put it on the face. Generative AI works differently. So for example, when a patient takes a picture of his smile, it will be able to take the edges of the teeth, reconstruct them, and then take the teeth of the patient, align them, put them in an ideal situation to give him a photorealistic end result, to show him what he could look like with his own teeth after orthodontic treatment. Now we move to the last part of the AI, which is the 3D application. 3D application today is the most advanced form of AI that we have. I will show you why. What does it mean, 3D monitoring? It means the ability to transform 2D images into 3D images, so into STL files. What happens is, pretty simply, at the beginning of a treatment, after you're taking, for example, a scan with an IO, with an intraoral scanner, you upload it to DM dashboard. Then every time you take a 2D patient scans, the system is taking the 2D pictures and then it's matching them with the STL files to create a new one. And this is what, this is how the system works. Every time the system receives a file, it goes through a different processing pipes, tooth axis, occlusion, arch orientation, and so on. And so what's the aim of doing this, you might ask? Very simply, to be able to, that's not working here, the ability to quantify exactly teeth movement. This is something that have never been done before. So these 2D, from taking 2D images, you are able to know at as little as 0.1 millimeter and 1 degree how the teeth are moving. So this graph here represents a general movement of the upper and the lower arch, general. So you can see, for example, the arch is active and then at one point it will plateau. When it will plateau, that means that the arch wire is becoming passive and so on. But the more you want to go into details, you can, and then you can monitor this tooth by tooth, how it's moving in rotation, torque, and et cetera, and so on. This might sound like a little bit of science fiction, but there was a study that was done at the University of Chicago, and the aim was to evaluate how accurate this conversion of 2D images to STL file was. And the conclusion was that it was clinically reliable. And it was as clinically accurate as an intraoral scanner, when used in the right way, of course. But so one thing that I want to say is that 3D monitoring is great as a technology. It's very accurate, it works great, but there's one downside, is that it uses a lot of computing power. Because every time we're trying to convert these 2D images into a 3D model, it uses a lot of energy, which is bad for the environment. It uses, and because it takes a lot of computing power on the servers, it takes time to get back the results. So instead of 12 hours, for example, with aligner cases, when you do the 2D, it takes 3 days to get back the results, which is not very convenient. So we try to think, how can we make the braces monitoring and this quantifying process easier and more convenient for everyone? And the engineers at Dental Monitoring got inspired by a technology that exists today, which is called pose estimation. Does anyone have any idea what this is? So this is a technology that is used initially by Facebook and by Google. And it was used to, from a 2D image, you are able to see, to build a skeleton, to monitor movement, and to transform this 2D image into a 3D skeleton. That was the aim of it. So they said, okay, let's try it. They took this, they built an algorithm. Another time he experimented on his own team. This was a few years ago, so the team was still small. Today we could not fit on one picture. And so they used the same concept to work on 2D monitoring. 2D monitoring with the skeleton of the arch, where you see the points, these are the brackets with 4 different axes. And what they're able to do through this is to estimate the position of the arch, the teeth, and then transform it into a 3D model and quantify the movement as you see. So this is a win-win situation. It's a technology that doesn't take a lot of computing power, it's fast, and it's as reliable as 3D monitoring. Because we don't need to see all the different graphs, all we need to know is, are the teeth moving or are they not, and is the arch wire passive? Now, another very interesting one is the refinement scan. Matthews, you talked about this. And this is something that, as Matthews explained, so for example, the patient that is living in Dubai and she needs a refinement, and she needs a refinement scan, it's not possible for her to go to his practice. But it's not just for that, even for other patients and even for you, it's not always convenient. We want to avoid unnecessary visits whenever we can. That's the name of the game. And so very simply, the STL file, how does it work? As I explained to you, the way 2D images can be transformed to STL files, these STL files will be transformed and they will be used to fabricate aligners aligners for the relapse or for other case uses. So in practical terms, what does that mean? You have a patient, you see that you need additional aligners. You need to call the patients to book an appointment. try to find the least inconvenient time for him to come. And the patient needs to come to the office. You have to take a scan. You have to update the 3D model, and then you have to send it, get the aligners back, call him again, and then give him the aligner back. Now it just takes 2 steps. You see a problem, ask him to do a scan. You have the STL file, you send it to the manufacturer, you get your aligner. You can call him to come or you can ship it, whatever you prefer. So that's how powerful, and that's really a game changer, I believe, in our profession. The last part is the DM insights. So one thing that we have at dental monitoring is that we have a huge amount of data. And each doctor that uses dental monitoring has a huge amount of data from his practice. You know, each time, for each treatment, you have on a weekly basis a scan. Treatment would take 10 months, 15, 20 months, multiply this by 100, 200, 500, maybe 1,000 patients. That is a lot of information. So we thought about how can we leverage this information so that orthodontists can really leverage this information to become better, to give more information to the patient. And so this is where the idea of DM Insight came from. How can we harvest this large amount of data to improve clinical outcomes? And so we won't not go into the details, but I will show you concretely some examples, some clinical examples to show you what you can do with this kind of information. So the DM Insights will give you, of course, how many patients do you have, what are the kind of treatments, how are things evolving, how compliant are your patients, etc. But then when you dive deep into this kind of information, this is the kind of things that you can do. So for example, here you have 2 types of protocol. One is aligner, one is braces. Both of them, of these protocols are for young patients. They are youth aligner protocol, youth braces protocol. And the doctor here, he wanted to know which one is worse in terms of hygiene. And if you can see here, noticeable gingivitis and noticeable gingivitis still present. With the aligner, it's 1%, 4%. You go to the braces and it's 8 and 70%. And so that way he knows that for young patients, it's a risky one in terms of hygiene. But this is not only the only thing you can do. You can compare 2 protocols if you're doing 2 types of aligners, if you're using 2 types of braces, and you want to know which one is clinically better. You have exact numbers to tell you this. Another case use is, for example, here, we're looking at slight unseat. So we're looking at slight unseat for all patients under this protocol. So it might be 200 patients over, I don't know, maybe 2,000 scans. 2 things that we see. Through these numbers, he was able to see, okay, where are slight unseat happening the most? And you can see, so it's the interiors, the upper and lower interiors. If you can see, we have a peak at those. And so he knows what to do now. He knows maybe to automate the messaging to patient to make them focus or use the chewies more in that specific region. And then what's interesting is that this is exactly what he did. So he changed his messaging a little bit and he told them to use the chewies better. You can include a link in the chat and it's all automated and they learn better. You can see over the time, this is the number of scans down, how it is decreasing. This means that at some point, this kind of coaching via the app was actually working and you have numbers to prove it. Another one is, this one is loss of attachment. So you want to know when this is happening. He noticed 2 things. So it's mostly happening on the lower 6 and lower right 6 over left 6. But the most important, he noticed something that it was happening the most the first 4 weeks, which could mean that it's a bonding issue. And if it's the staff bonding, then maybe we should need to retrain the staff, change the process a little bit. The last one is with braces. Is this word? Yeah, this is with braces. Incidence of bracket debonding, same. So it was one thing that comes to your eye is, oh, it's happening mostly on the 2nd week. So why is that? Thought about it a little bit. It could be that, first week the patient is in pain, he cannot eat, and you just coach them on what to eat and not to eat. And by the time it comes to the 2nd week, the patient is like, the pain is not so bad anymore. Maybe I can eat whatever I want. And this is what he's losing bracket at the 2nd week mostly. So he can take action. So one last thing, how powerful is our R&D today? why I want to talk about this, because it's whenever we talk about AI, and more, you will hear more and more, and this term is being overused in all different fields, and it's important to have slight knowledge about it to be able to differentiate between what is hype and what is real. And so you have to focus on few things. So the few things are, for example, how many people are involved in this, the R&D department, how much data, is there any IP protection, and so on. So at DM, we are proud to say that we have 170 plus engineers and orthodontists. We have by far the largest database in the world of dentistry, which is 1.5 billion images. This is a lot of images. IP protection in different fields. 229 IP protection patents filed and published. And these are the areas of protection. We don't care about to go into details, but this is good to show and good to know. So coming back to the first slide, when I presented to you the negative thoughts that we can have sometimes about the AI, I know that's a lot of people in the healthcare field, they ask themselves, or maybe in general, everyone in the workforce has the same question, will AI replace me someday? This might be a real fear to some people. And I would like to share with you, this is a really, really nice book if you'd like to learn more about the impact of AI in the world of healthcare. This is Dr. Eric Topol. This is the leader today in AI in the world of healthcare. And they asked him that question, and he used a beautiful analogy to explain it. He said, let's take the analogy of the self-driving cars, which is today the most advanced form of AI. There are 5 levels of automation. 0, you have nothing, you're driving the car by yourself. 5, you're just sitting there hoping it's not crashing. In the world of healthcare, according to him, it will never surpass the level 3, which is conditional automation, which means, as Matthews mentioned today several times, said, I am the captain, I am the chief here. I'm telling the protocol and the AI what to do. And the AI is just taking care of the repetitive task and what I don't want to be involved in. And this is exactly the role of AI today in the world of healthcare in general. So, one of the 2 people that are the godfathers of AI, they say 2 things about artificial intelligence, is that it is neither artificial, neither intelligent, which is true. Artificial intelligence is invented by humans to serve us the way we want it. And it is not intelligent. Why? For a reason. Because AI is very, 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 very good at doing one task. But when you ask him to make sense of all the information that you have, he's become as dumb as a rat. But if you wanted the AI to take care of repetitive tasks, of automating things, you cannot compare it to a human being. And so, the lesson that I want to leave you with is that we shouldn't have these negative thoughts or these worries at all, thinking that will replace us or make us less human, because the truth is, it's only when we become allies with this kind of technology that we become better doctors and better human beings. So, thank you.